to me is about building community and fostering relationships and cultivating empathy for one another. And the process of base building is one that is supposed to kind of humanize social issues and encourage everybody who might be involved in any campaign to kind of recognize their own self-interest in the work. And so when we think about the importance or urgency or relevancy of social issues in people's lives, one thing I often remind myself and a lot of my peers, especially as a young person in this work and as one of the few young people in a lot of the spaces I belong to, I think it's important to kind of remember that we're all experts in our own experience, right? And think I think that's like really what's central to the idea of base building, where we can all use our stories and experiences to build power and change communities, and that's really all we need. So it's really just about building relationships with one another and sharing our stories and experiences, and validating your own experience and voice. Um, and now I'm going to pass it to Anne to talk about our purpose.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Anne Aviles. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am part of an organization in Delaware called Network Delaware, and we have the HOMES campaign, which stands for Housing, Opportunity, Mobility, Equity, and Stability. HOMES is much easier. And I actually started attending some of the meetings through getting connected actually to people here in Delaware. So I'm originally from Chicago, where I did a lot of work around supporting students and families that were experiencing homelessness. And so getting them connected to services and programming. In Wilmington, Delaware, which is the largest city here in Delaware, about 2 years ago, they were introducing something called the Blight Bill. And it was very reminiscent of a lot of the gentrification that has occurred in Chicago. And as a result of that, I wrote actually an op-ed, and that is what actually connected me to people who were organizing against the Blight Bill in Wilmington. So I'm new to this aspect of the work, and so I'm really honored that Homes Guarantee and John specifically encouraged me to come, share my story today. I think it's really important, especially as a transplant, right, to the community, to talk to people, to learn about, what their challenges are and ways that we can support, and really building meaningful relationships. To me, that's I think the element that has been missing since I came here from Chicago. We launched our campaign in February of 2020, and as you all know, COVID hit, which has made it very difficult for cultivating more of community, right, with folks because of the challenges of COVID. So really what I am hoping to get out of this, and as John shared with me, it's an evolving process. And so I really hope to learn with and from people and to build community and learn how to do that in ways that really support long-term efforts around housing as a human right.
You're muted, John.
John, you're muted.
John.
Smooth move there. As I was saying while I was muted, wanted to let everybody know now's the time to kind of drop your name, pronouns, where you're from in the chat. I see some folks from Buffalo have already done so. Shout out to all the folks from Buffalo who are joining today. So if you can drop your name and your information in the chat so we know that you are who you are. And we're going to be using the chat in a couple different ways. So we'll at the end have some open space for just Q&A and open discussion. But if there are questions or things that you have that you'd like to bring up at that point that come up along the way, please feel free to drop those in the chat. And now we're going to move on to talking about what base building means to us. So really, we're having this conversation because, we're in a political moment where there's a whole lot of talk about strategy, about tactics, about what to do, about what's going on with this huge political shift that we've just had. And yet the reality is, without base building, without engaging this large number of people who've been deeply impacted by the pandemic, a lot of that strategy conversation is really empty. So as you're dropping your information in the chat, identifying yourself, I'd like a few folks to either raise your hand, drop it in the chat, or just come off mute and share with us how you think about base building and what base building means to you. So I know we have some talkative and powerful leaders on the call here. Who wants to jump in?
Yeah, sure, I'll do. Yeah, Adam from Buffalo, he, him, his. For me, base building is when I'm thinking about we have an action. Do we have people that we can count on to be there with us? If we need to stop a landlord from pursuing an eviction, do we have a group of people that we know will be with us at our backs, at our side, and standing with us? And so, base building is how do we get there to know that we can count on others and they can count on us all the time.
That's a great thing. Yeah, who's going to be with us? Who's at our side? Dan, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, base building, just to piggyback off of what Adam was saying, is, community building, relationship building, like taking organize a step further and like just really building those deep, like meaningful connections with people. So we're a solid, unit and a real community, that show out for each other in those ways that, Adam was just saying. Like, if someone's getting evicted, especially through all this bullshit, like, we're not fucking taking it anymore. Like, we need to organize to a level that we can, mobilize in a moment's notice and show up and, find where everyone's place is in this. Cause that, not everyone's going to be on board with that or willing, to risk that, but we need to, identify those people who are and, have them ready to go, and then find other ways that other people, can contribute and, information and all that. So, yeah.
Cool. Kaz, you dropped some good stuff in the chat. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I was talking about like how base building is like reaching out to your community and seeing like what your community needs in and of itself, because every community has like different needs and different struggles and stuff. And it's also an individual person who maybe does need anti-eviction help is probably going to respond 1,000,000 times better being reached out to someone within their community than someone they don't know, or someone who's from the outside, so to speak, or just some organization that they have never met before, never had any experience with. So I think base building is very important to really get those networks and connections together, so that way you can figure out what is needed, what struggles are going on, and like build that connection, so that way you are able to get what needs to be given to the people who needs to get it. I don't know if I articulated myself very well there, but I tried.
No, that was on point. And the purpose of this is like, there's no exact answer. It's more a feeling, it's more an understanding. So we're just trying to get some different perspectives. Cheyenne, you just dropped some stuff in the chat there. If you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Just, giving people an opportunity, I think, to get involved is what it is. And, providing people a chance to see each other in their neighborhoods, and also see organizers and everyone else who's pretty much getting involved as power brokers in the same way that they may see legislators or other decision makers. Basically getting people to a point where like they're not only, I guess, asked about their vision, but they're also being, given the opportunity to build their vision as well.
That's so important, being given an opportunity. And I love that framing of actually like, we're not trying to, a lot of people have this attitude of we're like kind of pulling people into stuff. but actually saying, no, we're actually giving people an opportunity to be engaged and to empower themselves. Cool. Mary, do you want to talk about what you put in the chat?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just reading something
Oh,
that said a two-directional process, and that's what it is. I'm sorry if I butted in here, but it's like, you know, talking to people and meeting people and just, you know, getting people to believe that they can lead this group, this movement, and they have the power and they have all the knowledge they need. And, you know, as an organizer, I can provide, you know, like I have a copy machine, right? I have certain skills and I can provide kind of like technical support, but you know, it's, you know, turning over the power of the group to the individuals in the group and having them create it and figure out what the priorities and tactics are.
We had two Marys both drop things in the chat.
But this Mary really hit the nail on the head. Yeah, Mary from Syracuse. That's pretty much what I was gonna say. And just yeah, I think I appreciate what you said, John, about like without base building, our strategies are hollow because like, you know, like working class people, you know, tenants and everything have you know, like you said, Mary from Syracuse, like the knowledge and skills already to come together with others in their communities and to start addressing these problems. And so if we can combine, you know, our skills as organizers with their skills and learn from them and then learn from us, then I that's how I see it. But yeah. Thanks, Mary from Syracuse. Yeah.
So I think we have a good sense of what base building is. We're actually a little under time, which is pretty unusual for meetings that I'm in. I'm curious for a few comments on like, what are some of the things that get in the way of people doing base building in the way that they really want to?
I would say a global pandemic. Just the obvious one, pardon me.
All right, global pandemic. Well, it makes it a little harder, you know.
Share experiences, right? Hi, Jen.
Yeah.
Hi.
How's it go?
Share experiences and things. But, you know, like your experiences and you talk with people and stuff, things like that, which you have in common or don't with another person, you might convince them sometimes, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about the intimidation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, courage and support that, you know, that's needed to get a person from being on one level of involvement to the next, like whether it's going to knock on doors or talking to their neighbors. And I know for me, like I know when people are in need, it's always hard to ask more of them, but, you know, it's always important to engage people and give them the chance to contribute.
Yeah, and not sure who it was because the chat's moving pretty fast, but Lauren, we talk about how it's not funded and what kind of problem that creates. You there, Lauren?
You're on mute, Lauren.
Lauren, if you could unmute yourself.
Sorry, y'all, can you hear me now? Sorry about that.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, it's just like, capitalism. A lot of people said capitalism, but I think I think true organizing at its root has to do with base building, and I think most funders are funding like things that feel like quick results that most often look like a quick policy campaign that people think is an easy win, and I think funders aren't paying for base building in general, and so I think building like grassroots organizing structures to fund our own movements feels like a really important other way to go.
Cool. Well, I appreciate all the sharing thoughts and feedback. I think I will let Doherty, if you want to talk real quick.
Yeah, so I have one. I think sometimes what gets in the way of base building is if we're not even sure what we're asking people to do exactly. If we don't have an ask, then it's kind of hard to know what it is that it's hard enough sometimes to ask people to do something, the proverbial something for nothing. But I think it's even harder if we're not sure what our ask is. So I think, I'm saying it's a challenge, but in the same breath, I'll say that, when we think about base building and bringing people in, it's just a good idea to always think about like what it is we're bringing them for.
Absolutely. Like, we're not going to be confident in building if we're not grounded in what we're building and why. Cool. Well, really appreciate all the feedback. I'm going to kick it over to Ashley and some of the folks in LA to talk about what our Homes Guarantee campaign is, and then we'll get into our base building training.
Alrighty, thanks, John. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. My pronouns are she, her, and I am one of the founding members of Ground Game here in Los Angeles, a member of POWER, People Organizing for Westside Renewal, and an organizer with the National Team for Homes Guarantee. I'm joined today by one of our unhoused teammates here in Los Angeles, Hal, who I'll introduce you to in just a few minutes. Tonight, we were supposed to be joined by a few more of our unhoused colleagues here in Los Angeles. We all do work on the ground in encampments and are trying to build a homes guarantee here in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, 3 of our leaders will not be able to join us tonight because they are recovering tonight physically and emotionally from a shooting that happened. And thankfully, everyone is okay, but they still wanted to lend their voices to this conversation, and they've asked me to share a statement with you all about what a homes guarantee means to them. So this is from our colleagues Marquise, Zoe, and Imond. So in a world with a homes guarantee, our brother Devon might not be lying in bed with a gunshot wound, being forced to recover once again from senseless violence brought upon by outsiders who hate us because of the blackness of our skin and because we live outdoors. Imagine a world where there was no bottom, one where your neighbor was just your neighbor because they're your neighbor, not because of tax brackets or real estate claims. A world where where good is done for the sake of good, not gain. Over the past year, we, the unhoused community at Echo Park Lake, have been creating the groundwork for this world. This is the world that we're working towards building when we're talking about a vision of a homes guarantee. We've been harassed and experienced violence at the hands of LAPD, the city, and groups in the area who wish to do us harm. In spite of all of that, we've been able to come together as one community, both unhoused and housed. What we've discovered is that there really is nothing but love. Separation is an illusion, one that our society unfortunately permeates in everything that it does. From class division to hierarchical work structures to goals that benefit only the individual, people are really feeling themselves, #ego, or feeling really down on themselves. And that's just not what we want our reality to be. That's not the reality, at least this is not the reality that we live every day in the park. For us, there is no class divisions and no power structures. We are simply a community of people trying our best to keep positive and keep going through difficult times. When the mayor cut funding for our showers during COVID-19, we didn't just accept it, we built our own showers. When the city decided to cut our water supply, we didn't just accept it, we rallied community support and now have full gallons every day. We've started our own jobs program at the park. We all work to keep our living space clean and are trying to save funds to get indoors. Here in Los Angeles, there are no shelter beds available. And those of us who have been in shelters have been terrorized and abused by yet another system that is broken. Many of us have been on waiting lists for permanent housing for years. We have built something beautiful at our park during a turbulent, transitional time in all of our lives. However, the threats on our lives have not stopped. We cannot continue to exist in peace and live outside under continuous attack. 12 million social housing units would give us, and those like us, the safety and stability we yearn for. We are not second-class citizens. We are hard workers. We have goals and dreams we are striving to achieve, and we know we do not deserve the violence we have had to suffer through day in and day out due to our unhoused status. We are ready to bring the community that we have built back indoors. We imagine one day living on the same block, all 103 of us, in buildings that we care for and will one day own. We will stand with renters who have been oppressed and live and work together in a world that we create built on love. No one will utter the word eviction ever again. Organizing for a homes guarantee is no longer just a dream for us. It is something that we absolutely must ensure comes to fruition. We cannot take this work lightly. We must fight harder than we ever have. Our lives have been threatened daily by bulldozers and bullets. It is only by the grace of God that we have all survived this week. We are in the fight of our lives for our lives. Thank you all for your support in this difficult time. Let's pass our homes guarantee. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Hal, and he's going to go ahead and share his story and vision of a homes guarantee.
My partner and I are tent dwellers in Hollyweird, California. My name is Hal, and I'm just a mess of a man. I'm disabled from birth by a genetic condition, autistic, asthmatic, pack-a-day smoker, wheelchair user, transgender, and have CPTSD. I'm also a full-time activist, advocate, artist, field medic, amateur piano player who loves to sing, and is deeply involved with several grassroots organizations, including Ground Game LA. My partner is Jeremy, aka Jay. We've been together for 8 years. He's got a 20-year-old untreated traumatic brain injury, suffers from migraines and memory loss, acid reflux. He's also a pack-a-day smoker with asthma and heel spurs. He's my caregiver because I'm a fall risk. He plays the guitar and sings like an old pro, but he says he's not anything special. We've been unhoused in Los Angeles County for over 2 years now. We've been criminalized, brutalized, victimized, dehumanized by cops, politicians, and unhoused and housed neighbors. We've been denied help based on age between 26 and 55, gender and sexuality, trans and queer, and disability, autistic and wheelchair user. We've been attacked by addicts, security guards, and cops. We've been forced to ingest illicit substances, secondhand meth smoke in the bunk areas while in shelters, while also being denied access to medical cannabis as per our doctor's recommendations. Our car was illegally towed with many of our belongings in it with no tickets or contact. We've been denied reasonable accommodations as per the ADA by LAPD, LA Sanitation, Path Bridge Shelters, politicians, and NIMBYs. I don't even want to think about what it would mean to have our own place again. Not in a bad way, just in the I don't want to get my hopes up just to be dashed on the rocks of bureaucracy again way. I've had this particular carrot dangled before me several times, only to be let down and trampled underneath the crushing weight of yet more need to prove my worthiness of a home of my own. It's already traumatic to be unhoused. To make me prove my worthiness of a home is re-traumatizing and dehumanizing. Having a homes guarantee legislative package passed means that I'd never have to feel like I'd need to be deemed worthy enough to receive that which should be provided as and considered to be guaranteed human rights. It would allow us to pursue our individual and communal artistic activities. It would allow us time to separate and decompress as every couple needs. It would mean food security, a semblance of safety, and a sense of community that has thus far been denied to us merely for being poor. We came to LA to escape hate and bigotry, only to be condemned because greedy people see those in lower tax brackets as vermin.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Hal. So as our leaders all said, we're in the fight of our lives right now for housing as a basic human right. That's what the homes guarantee is all about. It's about recreating and building structures that are just and centering our leaders who are impacted, letting their stories guide our legislative work, really centering those stories and working with folks like Hal and our leaders at Echo Park to change this nation and the corruption that it's been from its foundation, and really creating a new future for this country. And that's what our vision for the homes guarantee is.
Wow, that was like so powerful, so amazing. Deeply appreciate you all for showing up in the face of that brutality. And thank you so much for showing up for your folks in this space and showing us example of what base building really looks like. Want to kick it over to Bill Przlucky to intro our next session. And again, thank you so much for all your work.
Hey y'all, this is Bill Przlucky. I am with Ground Game LA and Power here in Los Angeles. Work with Ashley and Hal and all the folks that you just heard from. So yeah, sorry, I apologize in advance for if I am a little bit getting caught up with the agenda here myself. So oh, and my camera's off. Okay. Here we go. All right, so we're going into a session about base building. We're breaking out, right?
Yep.
Or are we doing it all together?
We're gonna break out and then we'll debrief.
Yeah, so we're going into breakout rooms, and we're going to be discussing base building. And a big part of what we're doing is talking about base building versus mobilizing, right? And talking about what does it really mean to build base deeply with each other. So you just heard a story from Los Angeles about how community members really can deeply support each other and can maintain community and maintain showing up, right? Can be here right now today, working with us and continuing to do the work through really difficult times. And we all know in the Homes Guarantee work that there are going to be some tough times. We're in a deeply, deeply, deeply traumatic, unjust housing environment, right? So as we're fighting for these rights, we're going to be working with folks who are dealing with all manner of personal challenge and struggle. And how are we going to actually build the power that we need to show up for each other and keep this fight going when we're living in a system that is trying to pick us off individually and take us all down by eviction, by harassment, by discrimination, by just top to bottom, right? Injustice. So I think that's the framing. That's the table setting for the base building.
That is the table setting, and gonna send everybody off into some breakout rooms for 10 minutes to have a little personal conversation about base building with another person on this call. Then we'll bring everybody back out to debrief and talk a little bit more about this idea of base building versus mobilizing. So we'll see you all in about 10 minutes, all right? Okay.
Irene, I love that image.
Cool. I think everybody is in their rooms. How you doing, Belle? Looking smooth.
Sorry, y'all. Do you mind putting me in a room?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You joined after I set the thing up to do this. Yeah.
Sorry, my video kept disconnecting.
No, there actually is one person in a room by themselves. So let me figure out how to get you in there.
Thank you.
Did we give instructions for what they were supposed to talk about?
Yeah, I think
not really, because go ahead. Oh, I thought there was going to be someone in each room that was going to know that. Is that not true?
No, but I feel like we'll have some folks talk about base building and we'll be all right.
You can also
go ahead.
Okay, so a homes guarantee impacts those who are unhoused and on the verge of being unhoused the most. Those are the people you need to talk to. Those are the ones that are going to give you the most real information about what's going on the ground. Those are the ones you want to talk to, but nobody likes having their door knocked on. Okay. If you didn't call me first, I'll knock on my damn door. So the problem becomes, how do you connect with these people on the ground that can give you the best information available? Because I know a lot of shit, even before I became unhoused, I was scared of unhoused people. I didn't know any better. I was one of those that was happy in my little fishbowl and didn't care about much that went on outside my fishbowl. And then I became without a fishbowl. So I get it. It's hard to talk to people and make yourself available to people that you don't know on any level or trust on any level. But that's where the leap of faith comes in. That's where you've got to put yourself out there in such a way as to let people come to you. All right. Put out flyers, post bills. Hi, my name is, this is my phone number. These are the resources that I have to accommodate with. If you need me, call me. There are 100 ways, 1,000 ways where you can engage a community that you have no contact with without putting yourself in danger or making those you are trying to contact uncomfortable. Because a level of discomfort on either end is going to be palpable, and it's going to be a hindrance to the communication that you're trying to build. I'm racking my brain again. I'm autistic and I've got this little gremlin typing at a teleprompter in my brain, so bear with me. Flyer posting is good. Most unhoused have access to a smartphone. So make Facebook groups, make Twitter storms, make social media a big thing, because for a lot of us outside of the people that we camp with, that is where we get the biggest part of our support. I came in contact with Ground Game LA through a completely circuitous route. But if I hadn't come in contact with these original people that I came in contact with, I really wouldn't be where I am right now, talking to you today, being able to give you this keyhole into a life that you might not otherwise see. And I'm trying to give ideas here for that base building, because I understand that y'all want these open lines of communications and are unsure about how to go about making these lines of communication open and accessible and fearless to be used. You want these things out there so that people will use them. People will reach out when they need the help that they need.
Those are powerful ideas.
Social media, the flyers, stickers. Oh my God, stickers. People love stickers. I don't know why. People love stickers. Put stickers with in trouble, phone number. It's easy. There are a million ways to frame it that make it easy for people to contact you and for you to get in contact with the base that you are trying to connect to, the resources that you have. All of these ideas have been rattling around in my head for quite some time. I just haven't had an outlet to verbalize it. And I don't verbalize well. I would much rather write, and even that's stressful. because I most of the time I don't know how to communicate without cursing. It's a thing.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done for the moment.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hal. Beautiful ideas and thoughts. Always appreciate that.
Now, did John disappear somehow? Is that supposed to happen?
Doherty, you're muted.
Oh. No, I'm not.
I hear you, Doherty. Speak, Doherty, speak.
Dang, now I forgot what I was gonna say. I'm hoping that John went break room visiting. Maybe he went to see how things are going in the breakout room.
I was excited. I thought I was going to get to go to a breakout room. No, I'm sad. Yeah.
Is that why you got all purdy?
Yeah. Did you just shower, Bill?
Well, if you want a longer, more detailed conversation about, a mask, using a mask as a leave-in conditioner, stuff like, I can explain it to you if you want me to.
I use leave-in as well. That's why I looked and I was like, that's the vibe when I'm waiting for my hair to dry out, to air dry.
So I see folks are coming back. I'm gonna do a romper room. I see Kurt. I see Lori. Y'all don't know about romper room. Hi, Kurt. Thanks for joining us.
How are you? I was trying. I don't know what happened when he went to the switch. When he went to the breakout. I was in room 9, but then when I went to room 9, it was just me.
Okay, well, welcome back to the main room.
So I'm in the main room.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
So how's everyone?
We're fine. We're just throwing around there's John. Some ideas about how to do base building while we're waiting for folks to return. Or maybe if anybody even has some more ideas of why sometimes it's difficult.
Real quick, Bill, do you feel good about picking this up? Okay, folks are going to be coming back in about 30 seconds.
Kurt, did you eventually get to a room with a person, or were you?
That's what I was saying. I wasn't able to get it.
Okay.
So real quick, before I kick it over to Bill, I do apologize. The way that the whole setup for breakout rooms works, if someone gets kicked out before, it messes things up a little bit. So I tried to adjust as much as possible, and sorry if you had to sit there for a little while.
When I came in, you all have already started. So when it got to the breakout rooms, I never really had a chance to say what room I wanted to go in. So that's what happened.
Okay, well, I apologize for that,
okay.
but hopefully we'll get you engaged and kick it over to Bill to kind of debrief what we just did here.
Yeah, John, you just let me know when everyone's back.
Everybody's back.
Everyone's back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hopefully you had a chance to talk to somebody interesting and dig in a little bit about some of these questions around base building, or you had a chance to find out more about how interesting you were and talk to yourself alone. That can be valuable sometimes. So I just want to get a little bit of feedback from folks. What makes, I want to hear whatever interesting things people came up, but kind of a guiding question is, what makes for a transformational relationship? What is actually the key? Did anyone feel like they honed in on stuff? And feel free to pop in if you feel like you have an answer while I figure out how we're going to manage multiple panels worth of people. Chris, are you raising your hand? Christopher, go ahead.
Yeah. Jessica and I talked about how the first stage in base building is kind of building that relationship with trust, and building a human connection, whether that's directly talking about the work or the issue, or just like checking with people, like, how are you doing? Like, how's your family doing? What have you been struggling with lately? And and the job of base building is kind of to deepen a person's level of involvement, whether it's just having that conversation at first, to making often difficult asks of people to get more involved, with whether that's like just telling their story, or reaching out to their neighbors and anything like that.
I see. I love what's going on in the chat because it's going to help me call people in. I see Miriam has your hand up.
Hi. I was speaking with Jim, and what we talked about was some shared experiences. He's in Chicago and I'm in New York, and we spoke about some shared experiences with, in particular, the police and all this kinds of crazy stuff that's been going on for a long time. But what he said made a lot of sense to me, and he said that we can always improve on our one-to-ones. I've had a lot of difficulties since the pandemic with one-to-ones, and I didn't have that much training in them, even though I've been doing a bunch of other things. I haven't had that much training in them. And so I felt like I wasted some time with people I shouldn't have, and missed some that I could have probably kept. So it was really just basically saying the one-on-ones are sort of key to base building, and it's something that's, you share common ground with somebody. We're all human. We all have some similarity somewhere. And I think that was the key thing that Jim talked to me about.
Miriam, you just hold on. In just a minute, we're going to talk a little bit more about one-on-ones and some of that. Thank you, though. That's awesome for bringing that up. Shared experience is obviously a huge piece of folks connecting. I'm just trying to go back up through the chat. So Katie and Megan, sounds like you guys had a good conversation. Do you want to share anything about it?
We really did. Katie, it was great talking to you. We talked a little bit about how individualism kind of in our culture encourages people to kind of stand by the wayside. And it takes very brave and vulnerable people to share their struggle. And that's really how we connect. So in doing that, we have to be intentional. And that's how it's done.
Being intentional about connecting with other people. All right, I see Linda and Miriam sharing so much love in the chat. What's up with that? Tell us more.
Yeah, hi. We know each other.
It was Mia, actually, that I spoke with. She and I both have, we have something in common. She's organizing seniors, and I am also. And we are both faced with the fear of retaliation, and also sometimes seniors not knowing their rights. Also, many seniors, especially women, are afraid of speaking up because they have been raised not to leave everything to the men in their life. But a lot of these women don't have men in their life anymore, and it's up to them. And that's a real, and it's really difficult in the midst of the pandemic to do this. But we've had success. Mia has had success in San Antonio, me in Chicago. So we're on the right track.
Great. Mia, do you want to add anything?
I can just a little bit. We just spoke about how I think we had
I felt in San Antonio we had a really good base when we were all meeting in person, and the second things went on phone and on Zoom, it just dropped off. And it's like I live 7 blocks away from this complex that I work with, and I can't go over there. It's a public housing complex, so I can't even enter because there's no visitors. And just the struggle on that, because since then we've had more people join the campaign, and so it's almost gotten a little away from the original, rights, senior rights and elderly rights, and we have a lot of young people joining, and they're really enthusiastic, but like the base, quote unquote, the original people who are there are not as engaged anymore, and it's because they're seniors and it's harder to talk to them, and it's just hard to balance that and kind of like keep the mission where it started, but also bring on new people and keep that energy going. So I definitely learned a lot from Linda, and I want to connect with her further, definitely, because it sounds like very similar issues.
Okay, so I just want to ask folks a couple big questions that people can just do a little emoticon react thing, that thing, or raise the hand or just do it on the camera, whatever you want. But I just want to know, like, how many people here love talking to other people just normally when you're not doing this work, just in general? Who's like really an extrovert? I love talking to other people, strangers, random folks on the street. I'm that person who talks to the checkout person at the grocery store for 15 extra minutes if I can. Yeah.
It's not something I love, it's just something I accidentally fall into. Like, because I acknowledge that they're a human being and I'm a human being, and just part of being a person is communication and connection in my mind. Like, you can't, part of what makes us different from a lot of other creatures is that we are able to empathize and connect with each other on a very personal, emotional level and all of that. So to me, trying to get me to shut up, how dare you? I'm sorry, I had to read that. So yeah, I find myself like talking to, because I live in a college dorm, like talking to the desk assistants and stuff like that, and they're like, you're the first person I've talked to in like about an hour.
Thank you. And how many people, now give your little reactions, your little emotion things, if you wish honestly that you never had to talk to anyone ever, and like struggles with talking to people. Put your little thumbs up or do your little dance, John. This was John's version of showing us that. Okay, I'm seeing some folks on the other side here. And if you're somewhere in between, that's fine too. I do just want to point out that we have folks who have various modes and ways. And I think what's really important, one kind of thing that I was hearing a lot, and I just want to mirror back, is that this type of conversation, this type of interaction with folks, this type of relationship building is intentional, right? So we can do it whether we love just talking to people all the time anyway, or if that's a little bit more of the challenge. You know what? I think there's a way that either one of those can help lend the depth and authenticity that we're talking about. But it's good to know where you're at, where you're starting from. Because this is very much an art and not a science, right? So I don't think that we're going to teach you the one magic piece of wizardry to do the perfect one-on-one. I don't think that's like what we claim we can do. But knowing more about yourself is definitely going to help you connect with other folks, right? I just want to move this on to the next section, but just one last question, and then John, I'll move it on, is, so we asked this in the beginning. Doesn't sound like maybe we dug into that this much in the one-on-one conversations. Again, fine, but mobilizing versus base building, right? We're holding this up as two different things and recognizing them as separate concepts. So does somebody want to give a quick, like 10-second definition of mobilization? What does it mean to mobilize? Anyone? Who's done mobilization already?
When I think of
Go ahead.
When I think of mobilize, it means like turn people out for whatever action it be, right? Like on the streets, on the phones, whatever it is. And base building for me is I know where you live, I know what's going on with you, and I know what capacities you're able to show up, and in what ways you best show up. So I know a little more about you other than your email and your phone number.
Katie, I think that's perfect. Go ahead.
Mobilization is something's wrong, something's going on.
Oh,
and you
Jim.
get together with them and you mobilize. You mobilize, you go after what is wrong and you try to fix it with fellow travelers who also know what's wrong and want to fix it.
I think that's right. I think Katie laid it out really well, and Jim, thank you for adding to that. That like mobilizing, right? Something's going on, and we need people. We need folks out in streets, or we need people at the meeting, or at the hearing, or at the whatever, right? And it's numbers, right? And there's nothing wrong with mobilizing as a tactic. We use it. Sometimes it's important to mobilize to win. But this type of base building, what we're talking about is like what Katie said. You're way more than just an email on a list. You're more than a number. You're more than one of, we turned out 70 or 700 or 7,000 people, right? You're more than that. This is a relationship. This is people that we actually know. And I heard a lot of that in the feedback, but I want to really clarify that we at Homes Guarantee team definitely think that base building, that building those types of connections that are durable, that stick around. There's the big event in the streets, and then there's all the work in between. There's unexpected events, as Ashley and Hal showed us, that folks can get through together. That's the type of thing that we're trying to build. We're trying to build all across this country a network of folks who are deeply connected and dedicated to sticking together through the long haul. And that means we're going to be a lot more than just a email on a list to each other, right? So with that, I'm going to turn it back over for our next section.
Cool. Angel and Doherty, you want to kick us off?
So, can I share my screen? I wonder if it'll let me. It does. Let's go, even though I'm not host. So, me and Doherty are going to be doing a little modeling of a one-on-one. But before that, I wanted to kind of go over some information from a few slides I have that might seem, pretty relevant to one-on-ones. So one skill I try to work with my team members on is active listening. And, one of the things we go over is that you're listening for details that inspire you. This is when people are talking to you in a one-on-one. This is when you hear people telling their story publicly. This is, even if you're chatting it up at an event and you just happen to come across each other. And then, so you listen to details that inspire you, that make you want to communicate with this person more. And you listen for details that could lead to, follow-up questions later. Maybe they mentioned the fact that they've moved a lot. And, you pick up on that and you go, okay, when I talk to them next, I'm going to have some questions about them moving. And so some of the things that, we listen for are like family history and dynamics, schooling backgrounds, social life, et cetera, have people moved a lot, do they have a complex relationship with their family, or even things like awards they've won in school. When you're listening and you're paying attention, you're active listening, it's not just about negative experiences or positive experiences. You're looking to build a relationship and you want to pull in as many relatable experiences as possible, because that's where you're going to actually build that love, and that mutual trust is in the things you both have been through or both have succeeded at. I bring up active listening because that's part of what I consider to be an effective one-on-one. So in order to have an effective one-on-one, you have to know what it is first. And I define one-on-ones pretty much as just an open and vulnerable conversation between two people. When going into an effective one-on-one, the number one thing I always tell people is clarity. You want to be clear and firm about what you want and why you want it. So you want to tell people, I want to have time, I want to schedule a time for a one-on-one, or when are you free to sit down and talk for an hour? You want to be very clear about what you're asking of them. And then the second part of that clarity is the purpose. Why do you want to have this one-on-one? What about this person made you want to talk to them? You know, when you're asking them for the one-on-one, you would say, well, I want to sit down and talk because I heard you mention that you were homeless at one point. And, you know, like I was too, and I was couch shopping. And, you know, it makes me feel like we can relate. The more personal you bring it up to the person, you make it, really shows that you're investing in them even before you sit down and have that one-on-one. You know, if you ask, I just want to talk. Well, you know, some people don't feel like you're investing into them. They don't feel like you've paid attention to them, and they're just another person you're talking to. And so the third part is that curiosity. And, you know, like I said before, asking those follow-up questions and, you know, digging deeper into a topic. And sometimes people are not comfortable yet going into something, but that's just about, you know, like you table it and you continue to build that relationship and that trust instead of just like pushing through. And the last thing I just want to highlight people is that the goals of one-on-ones are to firstly spend time connecting with someone on a deeper level than we're every day encouraged to. On our everyday lives, we are not encouraged to actually get to know our neighbors and to get to know the people that we go to school with, beyond more than, hi, how are you? And how's the day going? And then two is to identify that self-interest, and which will, you know, we can go over some more. And then is to identify and to hear for those, you know, how have they been wronged in the field of like climate justice and housing justice, mass incarceration, like how have these issues in our systems of oppression really wronged people? And coming away from a one-on-one, you should be coming with a better understanding of that person, of their story, who they are, and of how the system has failed them and how you relate to that. So moving from that, I will, you know, swing it over to Doherty to do the bit of introduction on our one-on-one, our model one-on-one.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Angel. So back to what we were saying about, you know, needing to build our base. We need to build a base so that we can move people. So mobilize literally means to make mobile, and it comes from the Latin root word, which means mobilis, which means movable or pliable or flexible. So when we mobilize people, it can be for many reasons, right? When we want to have a party, we want to move people to come to our party. When we want, you know, when we're advertising a parade, we want to mobilize people to get to the parade. And in our case, especially right now, we need to mobilize people to fight for the things that we need, right? So a really good way of being able to get people to do something is by getting to know them. And this is one of the reasons that we do one-on-one. So Angel and I, we met back in, I think we said in April, I believe, through these Zoom calls. I've never seen Angel in person. The other day, we had a quick one-on-one just to talk about what we were going to do today. And so what we're going to do right now is just follow up on that. So please keep in mind, I mean, I love Angel, but we're not friends. I don't know him. I've never met him in person. We're friends in the sense that, you know, we're all in this together, but we haven't had a deep conversation yet, okay? So Angel, it was great talking to you the other day. And some of what really kind of stuck out with me was when we were talking about how many times we had both moved in our lifetimes, no? Can you tell us a little bit, can you tell me a little bit about, if you can remember maybe how many times you moved? I know you said you moved frequently, but do you know about how many times you moved?
About 7 in the past 12 to 13 years.
Okay, okay. About 7 in the past 13 years. So I had thought about what we talked about how many times we'd moved. And I realized that I've moved 23 times. Okay, 23 times. That's a lot of times, right? And we talked about the reasons of why we moved. And so what were some of the reasons that you moved in different moments in time?
there's been a couple of times where the conditions were definitely subpar. There was a house I lived in where there was a hole in my window. We didn't have any heat. The kitchen was on the back part of the apartment, so I was the farthest away from the oven. And the landlord's suggestion was to bring over an electric space heater and give me that in a room that was easily like 8 by 10 feet. So that definitely wasn't going to do anything. I used to wake up with like snow on my floor. And so, we looked for a different place. Sometimes those were kind of the things we were like, we can't stay here anymore and we have to start looking for something. Sometimes we've been, we were evicted. We were evicted because someone bought the house and they wanted us out so they could do like all types of renovations and convert it into, lofts and raising the rent. And sometimes the landlord has just lost the house and we ended up having to move. So yeah, no, it's definitely been a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, and I appreciated you sharing that with me on, when we do one-on-ones, it's we can ask about many things, and since we're both interested in housing, it's kind of an organic thing that comes up to talk about places where we lived. And so one thing that I shared with Angel is that I had also moved many times. Until this day, my mother will tell you, I moved so that my children could always be in a good school district. Well, I always went to the same school my whole life, and I was always in the same school district. So only now, in retrospect, do I have the understanding that there were different reasons of why we moved. And listening to Angel tell his story about, the landlord couldn't pay his rent or his mortgage or lost his building, it helped me to realize some of the things that had happened in my life. Angel, you also talked about your workspace as far as how it relates to your education and your childhood. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about your actual physical workspace that you work in?
So the place where the offices now for my job are held in actually is in the building of a school I went to as a child. And the school was shut down by the city and was vacant for a long time. And we had super old textbooks. We definitely, I don't remember even how accessible it was to like disabled people once they were in the building. And I just remember being moved into a different school building and being merged with one. And even then, still not getting anything close to a quality education. And then going back now and seeing the offices being like repainted and all these different things and how much it made me think about like growing up and how I had to leave that neighborhood and leave that school because of moving and then my friends moving away as well, and how it was no longer a welcome space for me. I no longer felt at home in that school and felt safe and felt loved. And so I ended up moving to leaving to go to a different school where, I have wonderful friends that I love and I still talk to from that transition. But it does make me think of like, it wasn't necessarily my first choice to leave the school I was in. Just kind of people having to move and things like that kind of forced me into wanting to leave.
All right. So I thought that was really interesting because it's more, decisions being made by, the powers that be about what's going to happen with property. And your school was closed and then it stayed vacant, and it's more instability added to our lives. And it reminded me of how here in Chicago, there are a few schools in different neighborhoods that have closed down. The Chicago Public Schools for a long time had a lot of property, and most of the buildings were buildings that were built probably about 100 years ago now, and there's some beautiful buildings. And now sort of the fashionable things is, the fashionable thing is to gentrify your neighborhood, close the school and turn it into luxury apartments, and to have an apartment that has a piece of a blackboard and a piece of the original gym floor is considered like, you know, cool. Like, look, you have a piece of the original gym floor. So we're gonna stop with that. But I just wanted to show how, like, and we only had time to talk for half an hour yesterday. A one-on-one, we like to say that you need at least 45 minutes to get into it with someone. You can always follow up. So what we did just now was follow up. And now what I've learned from my conversation with Angel is if I want to, you know, in both of our self-interests with instability that we've had in our neighborhoods and in our schools, if I want to organize something around, or my organization is organizing something around a school not closing or a developer not being able to put housing that is not affordable in a closed down school, I can call Angel, because I know that his self-interest is, you know, that's something that he is interested in and that he would be willing to move for, that he'd be willing to mobilize, whether it's through social media or contacting someone that he knows who lives closer to our area. It's a way that we get to know each other, to know each other's history and what is important to us. So our time's pretty much wrapping out. We can have, like, if anybody has a few quick questions. I've also dropped a Google form in the box. There was someone who mentioned earlier that they hadn't had a lot of training on one-on-ones. So this is a Google form where we can follow up with y'all. If, you know, if you're interested in learning more about one-on-ones, we can follow up with you and we'd have your information about how you're specifically interested in doing one-on-ones. Okay, so I think that that's it for our space. We're doing good on time. So now if anybody had any questions about that. Okay, at the end, I'm gonna have an ask. So there can be time for more questions specifically about this at the end or right now, because we have a Q&A space that is going to be run by Linda.
Thank you, Doherty. Appreciate it. We've presented a good deal of information this evening about building relationships and people power to win the Homes Guarantee. So now it's time for our audience to ask us questions. So if you would please drop your questions in the chat. And while you do that, I just want to say that we're all learning together. We have learned a lot from this evening's presentations. Thank you to Doherty and Angel and all the pair shares that we did. But now we need your questions to help us plan for future base building sessions. So let me go to the chat and see what kind of questions we have and see how we can answer them for you. Are one-on-ones okay on Zoom? Yes, right.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah. That's how our group is doing them, and probably in the midst of COVID, that's really all we can do right at the moment.
Yeah, I'll take the question from Lauren real quick. Adam, they are okay via Zoom, but definitely highlight the face-to-face, like having video on so you can see each other's like facial expressions and body language. What does base building look beyond a one-on-one, Lauren? So those, I kind of give this part in that, like in the other parts of the slides, is that like you can be at an event, you can be at a rally, and when you hear people speaking, or when you hear people talking about why they're there, that is another chance to like build that relationship and just being in safe in spaces together. I have, plenty of people that we never actually sat down and had like a one-on-one, but we bonded through experiences of being at rallies together and during their time occupying space, and just the continuous attempts to build relationship. And we spent a lot of time talking and getting to know each other. And so they're not the only form. It's just it just allows you to have a space where the two of you can share mutually.
Angel, there's a question of wanting to see copies of your slides online. That's from a number of people are interested in seeing copies of the slides you used.
We can definitely make that happen. So I'll get them from Angel and make sure that everybody who registered gets some copies of those. And also just wanted to pause real quick to see if any of our organizer panel here had any other thoughts about base building beyond the one-on-ones, because I think that's a really powerful question.
John, I got a thought on that, if that's all right.
Great, Bill, go to it.
Which is, thanks, Linda. Thanks, John. Which is just that in addition to what Angel was saying, like, I think, yeah, one-on-ones can happen anywhere. Also, for the Zoom thing, sorry, I'm just cheating and I'm answering the other one a little bit too, but I just remember the cats from Iowa talking about what it was like to organize in Iowa 40 years ago, just because it's so spread out and they were organizing small farmers. They used to do phone one-on-ones all the time. Like, that's just the way you did that because of the distance and all that stuff. So yes, do one-on-ones, however, whenever, for as long as you can do them in whatever situation. It's just a fancy name for relationship building, right? And I think the other key thing to base building is also the leadership development, right? So remember, if you're in this work and you're struggling with, all of us have too much to do because, like we said before, we're up against this massive pile of injustice upon injustice, right? Those are all opportunities to ask somebody else to help with something, right? And so as you build the trust, or once you know that this is a person that you can actually get down with and work together, maybe there's something that you can ask them to help with. And that's always an opportunity. That is base building, like bringing in more people, not only to be like, cool, I know, to Doherty's example with Angel earlier, like I know when the schools are, you know, if they're converting the school into a condo or whatever, I know I can call you because that's your self-interest. It's also just like, yo, Angel, would you be able to help with, you know, putting this spreadsheet together? I just need some like extra hands. And if you have that trust, you can build. So think of every task you have to do as also an opportunity to follow up on those one-on-ones with some leadership development.
Okay, any other questions from anyone? Okay, I guess we can move on then. I don't see anything else in the chat here. Any of our leaders have comments or
How often should you have a one-on-one?
Kurt?
Yes. How often should we have one-on-one?
Wants to take that one?
Yeah, this is something that we've been talking about. So it's not necessarily a question of quantity. It's a question of finding people that align with your self-interest, and especially people who are willing to fight for affordable housing and in specific a homes guarantee. So kind of feeling out people that you talk to see where their interest lies, and then having a more in-depth one-on-one. It's kind of it's a little bit of a process. No, you don't just meet somebody and say, hey, let's have a one-on-one with everybody you meet on the street. I mean, you can if you want to, but to be effective, we think that we need to you know, be a little bit specific. And another thing we need to know is what it is that we are going to, we do one-on-ones to be able to base build and to be able to mobilize people, right? So we need to know why we're mobilizing people. So in our one-on-ones, we need to know if people are willing to be mobilized for the need we have and in the self-interest of our organization or our campaign. What do y'all think about that?
I think that sounds so on point. And just wanted to say, like, we want to have them as much as we can, and we want to build as many relationships as possible. Also, because I think one thing that I've noticed with organizers that I've trained and supported is, because of some of the pressures, especially of paid organizing, we can get a little bit too precious about the people who are around us. And I think that's one of the things that like limits our power is, you know, when you have folks who show up and maybe they're not building power, maybe they're not doing some of those things. And you feel like, oh, well, those are the people that I got. Those are the 10 people that show up to every single one of my meetings. So I got to be down with them. And so for me, it really is good to just constantly be trying to look for those people and bring new people in to build your power up. And that's really the way to kind of work through, you know, some of the pressure that we have both from organizations and also from the world, right? Like we're all trying to figure out how to like stop evictions and end homelessness in a global pandemic, and that can be a lot of pressure. So it gets distributed every single time you're able to engage someone, and I think that allows for relationships to build in quality over time, because you are actually sorting through and finding those self-interested people that really bring energy to you and to the organization and to the campaign, as opposed to being like, man, I got these roles to fill, I got to find a name, I got to text somebody just to like kind of slap them together. So I say, like, don't go overboard, but yeah, try to have as many conversations as you can.
Mia has a couple of questions. She wants to know, who are the targets for ultimately achieving the homes guarantee, and where are the pressure points that we need to capitalize on?
Yeah, I'll start that one off real quick. I think that as Bill kind of said in the chat there, a homes guarantee is a really big long-term idea. And so like, I think in this moment, obviously the Biden administration is always a target. Whoever's the head of HUD is always a target. HUD as an entity, both in Washington, DC, but as an entity in our communities are always targets. And the public housing authorities that are in our communities are always targets. So the beauty and the gift and the curse of a national campaign is that like we both have these local systems, and I would defer to you on like who the targets are locally, who in your county, who in your city has the power to start guaranteeing housing. And then at a national scale, it's the people who are running this big system that kind of funnels money down to our communities, and how do we get those resources flowing faster and flowing more directly to people. But also would love if other folks from our team want to answer that question.
I was just going to add, I know some of the discussions we've been having is kind of what folks have been talking about is having these conversations with residents impacted, and then identifying either those landlords or those management companies as potential targets. So we've been like getting a list of kind of, I don't know, the usual suspects in terms of, right, who doesn't really do what they need to around maintenance and building and things of that nature. So that's how we're starting to identify potential targets.
Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to add on this question of targets that I think that it can be useful sometimes to start thinking of ourselves and our fellow tenants as targets, because whenever we get stuck in this model of asking power for what they can give us, it kind of gets us away from the long-term vision that, you know, socialism is about self-governance, is about direct democracy, is about a home guarantee, is about tenant-controlled housing. And for tenants to control housing, we have to be prepared to govern. And so we have to start thinking about building the capacity to self-govern. And yeah, that's going to take, you know, some intermediary work where we get people who are currently in government positions to fund the ability to have tenant cooperatives and things like that. But that's not going to happen unless we actually have the ability to govern ourselves.
Thank you, Bo. Anyone else? Guess not. Okay. Back to Doherty or John?
Yeah.
Doherty.
So I just wanted to end this with an ask, we've been talking a lot about building power, and the way we do that is by building a base, and the way we do that is by building relationships, and the way we do that is by getting to know people. And a helpful step to do that is doing one-on-ones. And it's, the first time I heard the expression one-on-one, I thought, you want to do a one-on-one with me? What? Like, it sounded weird to me. But I am very sad that my link for some reason is not working. I cannot take the security thing off of my organization's Google Forms. So I'll send that out to folks. It's a link for us to follow up with you, to see if you have any more questions about doing one-on-ones, to give gentle reminders of folks to do one-on-ones. But what I want to ask specifically and concretely is for y'all to go back, and even if it's with someone you already know, if it's been a while since you've done a one-on-one, do that with someone you know. Like, do a one-on-one with somebody you already know. I've been doing one-on-ones this weekend with people that I've known for 30 years. And I have found out so many things about folks. And there's some people that I realized that we don't have as much in common as I thought we did. But then there are other people who I thought we didn't have anything in common, and that they wouldn't sign a petition, or they wouldn't come to an action, or they wouldn't sign the document for the fair tax or vote for the fair tax here in Illinois, and they did. So a really good place to start doing one-on-ones, especially if you're kind of new to it or if you haven't done it in a while, is start with people that you know, people that you've met in your organizations, and people that you've met on Zoom meetings. I know some of you have come here from different organizations. That's some other information that'd be great for us to find out, so we could, help guide folks through getting some of those one-on-ones done. So I will get that out to you guys. I think we've got some email addresses. If not, if you'd like to receive that, feel free to drop your email in the chat, and we can send out some more information. Yeah, John's happy to have some one-on-ones with y'all. So am I. Like, we can have one-on-ones with each other. I think that Linda and Mia had a good conversation, and Mia said, yeah, I want to talk to Linda more. So that's a good opportunity for a one-on-one right there.
Appreciate the ask, Doherty, and I think that our intention is actually to really build a base of organizers, and hopefully to set up some sessions maybe where we can continue this, and would love to get more feedback about what would be helpful for folks in developing their skills. But want to kick it over to Bo to close us out, and really appreciate everyone for hanging out with us on a Thursday night for an hour and a half.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And thank you to everybody who shared your wisdom tonight on how we build this base of power that we need to win the homes guarantee. And I wanted to close with a quote from Black feminist scholar Barbara Ransby from this amazing biography of legendary base builder Ella Baker. And so in the book, she says that the process of building a movement for social transformation had to allow for, encourage, and nurture the transformation of the human beings involved. Individuals had to rethink and redefine their most intimate personal relations and their identities. Social change organizations could not replicate the cold impersonalism of the market-driven dominant culture. Personal relations were key building blocks for a new, more humane social order and for a successful revolutionary movement. And so earlier, Doherty taught us about the root of the word mobilization and the words about moving, shifting, motion. But the thing about motion is that eventually it stops and the energy disappears. You have the big action and then everybody goes home. But while mobilization is about motion, base building is about laying a foundation. It's about steadiness, sturdiness, building blocks, like Ramsey said in the quote. And we base build so that that motion that our mobilization start become constant movement supported by this foundation that can sustain it. You're in deep relationship with folks that you mobilize with, and y'all keep working from shared values until we win. And that's the work. So let's take what we learned tonight, let's go deep in our relationships and stack our building blocks of power. Thanks for joining y'all. Let's win a home guarantee.
So amazing. Everyone have a good night. And if our facilitators could hang on for just like 5 minutes so we can debrief.